Hi, my name is Bleeker, and this is my chemical experiment. So for my experiment, I'm going to be using Epsom salt to create crystals. Typically an experiment like this would take a day or possibly more, but with this formula that I got online, it should take no more than 3 or 4 hours. So what you're going to need for the experiment is Epsom salt. A lot of people have it around their house, or you can find it at the store. And you're going to want to make sure that it's pure Epsom salt. There's a lot of like Epsom salt containers mixed with other minerals and substances, but you want to make sure that it's just straight Epsom salt, or else it can compromise the experiment. You'll need a cup to measure it, and then you'll need hot tap water, a container to put your solution in. It can be a bowl, jar, any open container. I'm going to be using a mason jar in this experiment here, and it's a good idea to use something glass so you can see through, so you can see the crystals. And then you'll also need a mixing utensil. I'll just be using a spoon. And then if you want, it's optional, you can use food coloring. I'll be using blue food coloring. So I already have what you'll need is a half cup of hot tap water, and then I'll get roughly a half cup of Epsom salt into this cup here. So it's really just key to make sure that you have the same quantity of Epsom salt and water. So that's about even there. Right there. All right, so first you're gonna wanna take your hot tap water and put it into your mixing container. And then you'll take your Epsom salts and pour them in. And then you're going to want to take your mixing utensil, and you'll start the process of mixing. You should be mixing this for at least a minute. You just need to make sure that all of the Epsom salt is fully dissolved in the container. Make sure that, try to leave as little behind as possible, but a minute in this hot tap water should be about enough. So for the purposes of this, I'm not going to mix it for an entire minute. So call it good there. And then if you happen to have food coloring, then you can take that and make sure that you only put in like a drop or two, because I tried this before and I put way too much in and it may have compromised the experiment. So I'll just put a drop in here, and then you'll take your mixing utensil again and evenly mix that food coloring in there. That's fine. And if you have a top to your container, don't put it on, because it could cause it to take longer for the crystals to form. So just go ahead, put it in the fridge. Your fridge should be somewhere around 32, 33 degrees Fahrenheit. And you'll put it in there for 3 or 4 hours, check on it, see if the crystals have formed yet. So luckily, I already did the experiment. Once you pull it out of the fridge, you're gonna have some solution left. You'll just pour that out in the sink or wherever. And then what should be left behind is crystals, which I'll show here. So the bottom of the container has a pretty good displacement of crystals here. We've got the nice blue food coloring, pretty evenly done. So that's the experiment of creating crystals. Now I'll explain kind of what happens. So Epsom salt is just another name for magnesium sulfate. And what happens is the magnesium sulfate and the water are being mixed together, and the water is hot, so it allows more of the magnesium sulfate to be dissolved, because it's more soluble that way. And once it's all dissolved, it becomes a saturated solution. And so you take this solution, you put it in the fridge, and it turns from hot obviously to cold, and the solution starts to condense, the water's condensing, and then there's less room for the magnesium sulfate molecules and atoms to move around, so they start hitting each other, and this causes the crystal structures to form. And that's what creates the crystals. So I suppose the reactants would be magnesium sulfate and water, H2O, and they create this saturated solution, which is then cooled in the refrigerator. I don't know like the actual like reaction. I don't think there's an actual reaction that occurs, and there's no real life application to this experiment. Just kind of create some cool crystals. I don't know, you could use them to decorate or something like that. And that's all.